What do you love most about yourself now?
Oh gosh. Is it really conceited if I say so many things?
Nope, at all. On the contrary, I think divorce is an opportunity because it's the birth of the new you. So it wouldn't be conceited at all. I think it would be more of a contribution.
Yeah, I can't agree with that statement more. I just feel super grateful that I'm able to. Um, I don't think that it's I never would have imagined. I would think that like to restarting your life in your 40s would be super scary,
Yeah.
and I never would have imagined that my life would be like this. But what a beautiful opportunity it is to be able to say, oh, I get to make all of these decisions all over again, knowing what I know now. It really is such an amazing opportunity. And I'm so grateful for that every single day. And I enjoy getting to know myself. So the things that I like about myself are I've really, I'm, I, let's see, I really feel like a very strong sense of self now. I really like who I am. I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. I'm not afraid to listen. I feel like I really know myself. And I think that when you know yourself, that kind of transcends into all different aspects of your life. It's made me more confident. So when I approach, I've started producing again. And now when I'm approaching jobs, instead of feeling meager and like just walking on eggshells and being like unable to kind of knowing what I want to do, but not like really having the confidence to vocalize it and take a stand and say, no, I think we should do this, guys. I don't have that anymore. Now I'm like, hey, no, I think we should do this, guys. I think we need to go in this direction, or this is what I want to contribute. And I'm also not afraid to take constructive criticism, knowing that like somebody may not feel the same way. And I'm okay to listen. I'm strong enough that I can receive it and listen to it. I also feel like healthier and happier than I've ever felt. I take care of myself all the time. Every single day I do something for myself, whether it's working out or eating right or hanging with friends. I'm constantly pouring back into myself. So I really feel like I did an about face. All of the things that I recognized in my old self that were my weaknesses, I have now made them my strengths. I've really focused on making sure that all the things that I didn't do, I do consistently, and I talk about it. I share it with the people who will listen and are looking for inspiration. And I say, these are the tools that I use to help me rediscover who I am, to help create happiness within me, and to help me live a happy, healthy life. And I think that happiness starts on the inside. So it's not about like what you're doing, it's about how you're doing it. And I think that like really self-care also starts from the inside. So, you have to really care for yourself, like recognize what the things that you need, where the like losses are, where the like wounds are, and really focus on healing those things. And when you come out on the other side, which is where I feel like I am now, those things become like not wounds anymore, but more of badges of honor.
That's beautifully said. Wow, I just got trapped inside what you were saying. It was awesome. But what I wanted to ask you was, how do you identify those tools? Like, what can you advise somebody that's about to go through it? Like, like there's journaling, there's writing yourself a letter, there's different ways that you can figure it out. How do you identify the tools?
I mean, for me, I didn't really say this is the tool I'm going to use.
Yeah.
For me, I tried a bunch of different things and I found what fit me at that time. So I can't even say that it was one tool that I used consistently throughout. There were different moments where I was having different big feelings and not knowing how to deal with them, and I would use different tools. So I think that writing, like sometimes just writing letters to the people that hurt me. I never would send them, but I was finding that I was obsessing about the things that I wanted to say in my head, like the FUs that I wanted to like, or the explanations, or the I don't know, the rebuttals of all of the things that had been thrown at me. And I would run through them in my head all the time and constantly overthinking. and then I identified like I need to be able to get these things out, and so I obviously I didn't want to call those people and be like, so this is what I'm thinking. So I ended up writing letters to the people that hurt me, and I found that once I was able just to get it out, those thoughts disappeared, and once I recognized that happening, I really started purging more, and in different ways. Like I would purge to my therapist and say, this bothered me, and I would talk it out. And as soon as I would talk it out, those feelings were gone. Or I would write letters and I'd purge it out. And all of a sudden that feeling towards that person was gone, And so I think like comes a point where you do like this purge process, and it's just, I always said that I made this analogy, and I think it holds absolutely true. Like when I was first going through my divorce and I was holding everything in, I felt like I was operating at a glass, like basically almost full. There was like a millimeter at the very top. So any life thing that was added on top of that would just make me boil over and my glass would overflow, right? So as soon as I started purging, the water in my glass began to become less, And so as my cup became less full, the things that life was throwing at me added to my cup, but they didn't make me boil over, or they didn't make my cup overflow. So I was able to actually deal with life in general in a more healthy way because I was emptying my cup, And so as soon as I started realizing that, like, I need to start getting rid of these feelings, like whatever these huge feelings I'm feeling inside, if they're bothering me, I need to find a way to release them. It's the only way I'm going to empty my cup, And I really started emptying my cup on a regular basis. And by doing that, I was dealing with life better, dealing with the actual technicalities and process of divorce better, because there's a lot of like technicalities within that, and like, dollars and cents and, contracts and all of these things. So I was able to not take all of those things so personally and be so defensive about them, because my cup was becoming less full. So I wasn't reacting like largely to everything. I was like picking and choosing the things that were important to me. And I was able to like kind of evaluate things in a more productive and healthy way, because I wasn't so emotional and reactive.
So we talked a lot about emotions. Let's talk about the legal process, because I think that's something that inside of the first 6 months is completely, it's very, very present. What was your first 6 months inside the legal procedures?
Oh my gosh. Well, so because my mother died, I was left a home in Florida, so here I was, I just found out about like a major infidelity from my husband. I had 2 young kids who were 1 and 4 at the time, and my mother died, and my entire family lived in Florida. They had like a family business. So the logical thing that went through my mind, as they say, if an animal is wounded, it basically tries to make its way home. And that's what I felt like. I felt like I was this wounded animal. So I just wanted to like make my way home. So originally I wanted to move back to Florida, which if anybody is thinking about trying to do a move away, I really had no idea like what that process was. So I was like, no, I have a house in Florida. I have a business that I can work at in Florida. Like like all of the things that I felt what I was worried about, like financial security and having like support and help in raising my kids and being able to be a single mom, all of that was like, it was like a no-brainer for me to go home, but my ex is born and bred in California. And so that was like a major contention. So I originally went for a move away, and that created so much stress. And then as we became in the process, I started to realize like all the court proceedings, all of the financial costs to doing something like that. I got quotes that it was going to be anywhere between $100,000 and $150,000 in lawyers' fees to like $60,000 to $80,000 in lawyers' fees. And as the process went on, I started thinking like, my father died when I was really young, and, my girls have an opportunity to have a dad in their lives, and, who am I to take that away from them, So I wanted them to have a father that was close by. And then the second thing was, it wasn't a good financial decision for me. If I was really concerned about being financially independent, the last thing I need to do is, basically spend all of my life savings on lawyers, So after a couple of months of that, I decided to stay in Los Angeles and start working out a divorce proceedings with like shared custody and all of that. And so, the best advice that my lawyer gave me was, this isn't just a divorce, this is a business transaction, And so, I had to constantly remind myself that this is a business transaction. This is basically a division of assets. This is a division of time. And this is pretty much a contract that you are going to follow for the next 15 years. So you better know what you want and be able to fight for what you want and let go of some of the things that aren't that important. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, the process was kind of varied and difficult, but we ended up settling in the end, which I feel like we both received, it was fair. And I really am proud of myself. I think I did a good job in standing up for the things that were important to me and being able to have those things included in our contract, because, it's really important for you to know what it is that you want, because that contract is something that you can always lean on whenever there's conflict in your co-parenting relationship, because that is the basis from which you operate,
What is it like co-parenting?
Oh my gosh. I describe it like this. It's it's fine until it's not fine, you with people, I think that when you get divorced, there's a reason for your divorce. If everybody got along perfectly, you probably wouldn't be divorced. And so you are going to run into times where there's a difference of opinion, and I think that sometimes those times are those conflicts are few and far between, but they do happen. And I think it's about, being able to just work through those things and always, always, always put the kids first. This isn't about, co-parenting is not about two parents getting along. Co-parenting is about two parents doing what is in the best interest of their children. So I think that you always have to think what is best for the kids, and do what's best for the kids. And I do that all the time. And I have to say, it's probably some of the hardest things that I do. Because it's not really what I want, it's what they want. And it's hard to make choices of something that you don't want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it can be very difficult, but it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Just do the right thing,
How important is communicating?
Oh my gosh, it's everything, I think that communication is the basis of all relationships. And I think that the way in which you communicate, sometimes it's not what you say, it's the way that you say it. So I think that communication is so important, but I also think that communication can be, my lawyer told me that something one time, and I always think about this. So you can also over communicate, just because, especially in the first 6 months, everybody's fighting, things are really there's a lot of emotions involved, and, you might get into text fights with your ex, you know what I mean? And you're screenshotting them and you're like, I'm going to use this somehow, and it's just become so crazy, and sometimes you can over communicate where it's you're fighting back and forth. And I was doing that. I was definitely guilty of that, feeling very defensive and feeling like I always had to say something, because what if he used it against me? I have to have my voice heard, Yeah. But my lawyer was like, just because he says something doesn't mean that you have to automatically respond. It is okay. You don't have to, if he sends it to you right then, you don't have to immediately send a response. You can actually, there's no like timetable. So why don't you just sit back, think about it, cool off, and then if you feel like responding, then you can respond. And I thought that was great advice, especially for the first 6 months, because, emotions can be a real bitch. So, sometimes the things that you feel are like you're really adamant about, and you feel super right and super passionate about, they might not be the best thing that you should say at that moment if you're trying to diffuse conflict. So I think that maybe giving it a beat and just like allowing the emotions to calm down before you respond, and choosing whether or not a response is necessary, I think is also super important.
That's a wrap on another episode of Divorce the First 6 Months. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more insights. Take care.